not being friends. From the nation's Second Amendment watchdog, anti-gunners, get ready for the pain. The misinformation is over because this is the blunt object. From Gun Owners of America, this is Lock and Load with Bill Frady.
All right, rolling into the second hour on a Friday. This is Lock and Load. I have been, I will continue to be a massive proponent that females arm themselves simply because I know reality. And recently, in what would have to be termed the miscalculation of the century, the Bloomberg, every town that has illegal mayors wants to see some moms in action or something, whatever they're called nowadays. They put out this little ad that's supposed to be anti-gun that turns out that the message is a little bit different. Joining me now from Oregon, she wrote an opinion piece called Protecting Myself with a Gun is Not Academic. We're joined by Rachel Lucas, the executive director of Safer Oregon. Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on. Good.
Oh, yeah,
good.
My pleasure. Now, you yourself, you're not just some person out there that feels constitutional and warm and fuzzy about owning guns. You actually have a little background as to the proof that you, as a female, in order to defend yourself, probably need a firearm, don't you?
Absolutely, I do. Yes. I'm a rape survivor, and I didn't have a gun, and I got raped, and I barely escaped with my life because I was, as you say, I'm smaller than the man who raped me. And I couldn't overpower him. He could overpower me. I was trapped in a room with him, and he could overpower me without a weapon. Just the disparity of force. Guns are the great equalizer. And even just carrying a gun and knowing how to use a gun empowers me to go on with my life. And it's because I know that I can defend myself in a situation where I'm overpowered otherwise. Reality, as you put it. It just really is.
One of the things that I see out there amongst with the way the law enforcement and the courts and everything try to deal with self-defense, like in my state in South Carolina, if my wife and I get we separate, and all of a sudden one of us puts a restraining order out against the other, and it's real. Now, there's a lot of things that happen sometimes out of vindictiveness and mean-spiritedness, but if it's a real thing, right. If there's a real physical threat, in South Carolina, they pull both of the concealed carry permits, mine and hers.
Oh, that's bad, I think. I mean, I don't think that's because the person who, if it's real, the person who put the restraining order out needs to have a weapon. That's bad. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If I'm the domestic violence perpetrator and my permit is pulled, well, you know, I'm going to be perpetrating domestic violence. I've already made that crossover into being a lawbreaker.
Absolutely, you're already breaking the law.
And, you know, in South Carolina, even though they would pull my permit, they're not going to take my gun, and I can put it in the car and drive it legally to wherever my partner, my estranged partner is, and then I can, you know, still do the deed.
That's as a person, you know, you never get over the sense of vulnerability that you had at the moment of your attack. You know it. You're aware of all the situations now where that could be. It changes you forever. And all the bells and whistles in me are going off when I hear that. That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. I feel vulnerable when I hear that. I feel small and scared and unable to defend myself. That is just wrong. Somebody needs to be going to the legislature with that one. I feel sorry for all the women in that position.
That's not what we'll have to have you on, and we'll talk about that. Maybe we could get something started here in the Palmetto State regarding that. Needs to be done.
You need something like Safer South Carolina.
Yeah, truly.
Instead of Safer Oregon, our organization.
Now, when your attack occurred, were you not a gun owner? Were you not allowed to carry a gun, or had you never sought?
No, I wasn't a gun owner. I was raised in a liberal family that was anti-gun and, you know, peace and all that kind of stuff. And it didn't even occur to me. In fact, it was much later after the attack that even my daughter got involved with college Republicans, actually, to be honest. And she they were all getting CHLs and everything, and she said, Mom, you should get one. She kind of had an insight about that. And I was like, oh, no, that's okay for you. But, I don't know, I just had one day, it's like God kind of woke me up and I went, I think she's right. And I went and got my CHL. I learned to shoot, and it was, you know what, my phone is, talk for a minute, my phone is giving me my wake-up alarm. It's early over here. I need to turn off my alarm, okay? Okay, sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I don't even know if you can hear it, but it's going off in my ear. So she told me, Mom, you should get a gun, and I did, a CHL too. And I could not believe the feeling of empowerment that I had. I've been through a lot of therapy and a lot of healing, but there's this part of me inside that always felt scared and always ran to the shadows and hid, and I'd have, night fears and terrors and everything like that. And when I shot a gun, it was like, I can defend myself. Part of me that was waiting for me to finally stand up for me in a time when I couldn't was like cheering inside. And I've heard other women have that same experience. I'm not a victim anymore. You just know it. You know it, just like I knew that I was, that if in my rape situation, what I needed to do to save myself, which was not what my training was. You're awake in every level. That part of me knew. And I was just like, wow, that was not what I was expecting.
You've made the statement that the way you escaped had nothing to do with anything you were trained to do, did?
Oh, absolutely not. The training, that was what bothered me. That's what sort of inspired me, woke me up to do this article. I was so outraged and frightened even by this Bloomberg ad that I saw on The View, because, it works on people who are not crime victims or who have not, because they're thinking academically. And that scares me because, thank God, most people in America are not crime victims. But thank God that on The View, 3 of the women out of the 4 were. And even though I think they're probably progressive in other areas and liberal, those women wanted a gun. Every single one of those women for whom it was not academic wanted a gun. And that's where I said, the training that I had for rape crisis training, what to do if you're attacked, it was all academic. It's a bunch of arrogant women, in my opinion, sitting around deciding what would work in a rape situation.
That have never faced that. Right. They've never faced that.
Exactly. That's the difference. People who faced it have a completely different reaction. And I was angry afterwards. I mean, because, and also I felt sort of guilty afterwards, like, oh, if only I'd done these things that they told me to do. But then later I didn't feel guilty at all. I was just angry. How arrogant. How wrong.
We're coming up on the first break. I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. You can find out about Rachel Lucas. She is she lives in Salem, Oregon, and she is the executive director of Safer Oregon, Oregon Crime Victims for Self-Protection. Find them at saferoregon.org, and you can reach her by emailing her at info@saferoregon.org. Rachel, you hang on, please, and we're going to go into detail. You just stand by. With my guest, Rachel Lucas, on a Friday, this is Lock and Load. She has survived a sexual assault, and now she is a pro-gun advocate for women arming themselves. Rachel, just out of curiosity, you write about She Can Shoot, which is a women's league, and 90% of the people that join that are also, like you, victims that have survived sexual attacks of various levels. When a female goes through that, if they actually pick up the means for self-defense and begin to become proficient at it, is that part of the healing that should go along with all that stuff?
Absolutely. That's the thing that surprised me the most about learning to shoot, is that it is very healing. Like I said, I went through a lot of therapy, and I felt like, I felt pretty well. Even though I was still having some panic attacks at night and stuff like that, I thought, I just thought this is as good as it gets. I'm pretty happy and all this kind of stuff. But there's a part of you that lays in wait for you to defend it, to empower it, to take care of it. And I felt like this completed my healing. You know, you complete me, like Jerry Maguire or something like that. I just felt like I was so surprised. I want, and I've heard this from other women too. In fact, I got an email as a response of this article from a woman who lives in Oregon who is a crime victim. And she said, you know, after I was attacked, I got a shotgun and I got a pistol. And I felt like I could take control. Because of these guns, I felt I could take control of my life back and I could move forward. She didn't say because I went and sought counseling and did all this psychological stuff, although she may have done that, I don't know. She said guns helped her, empowered her, and helped her to move on with her life.
Well, I mean, you've been through counseling and you've trained with a gun. Which one did you walk out of when say halfway through the process to where you were like, now I got this?
Well, I'll be honest, neither one. I didn't walk out with either one. I think both are important. I really do. You need to talk it out. You need to get it out of your system. You need to work through the things where women tend to blame themselves. You know, it's ludicrous, but it's just a reaction. You take on the shame and the blame of the perpetrator. It sticks to you somehow like glue, and you have to talk it out. You have to heal from that, but you really can't take on, because of the difference in power and the fact that you were defenseless. You have to defend yourself. I have to tell you about another woman too. When I just told a friend of mine that I'd known for a while that I was starting this organization, and she said, well, you know, I'm a rape victim. I said, I had no idea. She said, a long time ago, and I've just recently been having panic attacks, and I went to the doctor. This was many years ago, almost 50 years ago for this woman. And she said, I went to my doctor, and fortunately for her, it wasn't one of those Obama doctors that interrogate you about how many firearms you have. Instead, this doctor said, I'm prescribing for you. You get your CHL. You get a gun. You learn to shoot it, and you learn to carry it. He prescribed a gun and a CHL for her and learned you to shoot it. And because of that, she felt so empowered. She was able to testify very powerfully when they tried to take away our rights here in Oregon a year and a half ago.
Is that doctor taking new patients?
I know, right?
It'd be worth the drive for me just to go see him whenever I got an ache and pain. That'd be worth the drive.
That gives me an idea. Actually, I need a new doctor because I just recently moved to Salem from the Portland area, and I need a new doctor. I think I'll call her up and ask her who he is.
There you go.
but she feels empowered. She's able to take her life back because of learning how to not only have, you know, learning to shoot, but carrying that gun with her. You know, I think it's kind of like a service dog for women who've been victims of violence. You know, because it's healing you even by just having it, because you're affirming to yourself every moment, I'm defending you. You know, I'm defending myself, that person inside of me that I wasn't able to defend. You kind of, no matter what it was, and whether it was all your fault or not all your fault, whether it was, even if it wasn't all your fault, which I'm sure it wasn't, there's a part of you that doesn't know that doesn't come from that kind of, you can tell I've had a lot of counseling, but the inner child. But, you know, there's a part of you that doesn't rationalize things like that. And it's saying, I don't care. You take care of me. You know,
see,
and until you do, it's sitting there waiting for you to do it.
Every time a Rachel Lucas or a Nikki Gozer or an Amanda Collins gets out there and goes public, I secretly, it thrills me because I have often believed many times that the salvation of the Second Amendment is going to come at the hands of the ladies because the argument they can make. But I tell you what, can you can you go through one more segment with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to touch on that.
The other thing I want to ask you about, and we're going to have to take that next segment and really move fast with it because right. I want to get this out of you. Have you heard of Taylor Woolrich?
No.
You haven't heard of Taylor Woolrich? Okay.
No, I want to write that down because this is going to be important, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think it's very important, especially since she's being held back. Rachel Lucas is the executive director of Safer Oregon, Oregon Crime Victims for Self-Protection. Find them at saferoregon.org. She can be reached at info@saferoregon.org. You guys got a Facebook page and all that other stuff too?
Yeah, we absolutely do.
Safer Oregon on Facebook?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of gun do you carry now?
Actually, I carry a revolver, a Smith & Wesson airweight hammerless. I used to carry I tried a semi-automatic, and it's too hard for me to chamber around. And I know in a panic situation, my hands are going to shake. I didn't grow up with guns. I'm going to revert back to what is the most basic. And with a revolver, you point and shoot.
Yeah.
In fact, I just got myself a North American Arms Sidewinder, really tiny little revolver, 22 Magnum. And I like that one because, you know, it's a little hard to conceal carry a revolver, but this one is tiny. But
Did you change the grip on your Smith & Wesson?
I have a Crimson Trace on it.
Oh.
I'm going for self-defense.
Okay.
I'm actually a pretty good shot, but I know, for me, this is self-defense. I know my hands are going to shake. I know I'm going to panic. I'm not about my ego.
No, the only reason I was suggesting a bigger grip is because it's easier to train with if you have a bigger grip, because those J frames are sort of small.
I'm pretty good at it. I actually, the first gun I shot was one with a hammer, and I realized that snags when you need it the most. So I traded it in and bought a hammerless about a year and a half ago.
I do really believe that the salvation of the Second Amendment lies in the hands of the ladies, and I get to go along with it. We'll be right back on a Friday. This is Lock and Load. She is a pro-gun advocate for a reason, which we've discussed in depth. Now, I just had talked about the women being the salvation of the Second Amendment, and you wanted to talk about that. Go.
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, that is why I started the organization Safer Oregon, because I could see my right to defend myself practically dissolving before my eyes with legislation and laws and Bloomberg's money and all this kind of stuff. And I know that women's testimonies, women's heartfelt telling of their own stories, their experience, any woman who's been a victim, find the strength to come forward and tell publicly her story or testify at the legislature, because we have, in our vulnerability, we have the power. We are the ones who can save our rights. And it's very empowering to do so. I do encourage women to know themselves, to know what they can comfortably share and what they can't, and know that they're in a safe situation, because they'll have a reaction afterwards. But it can be very, not only empowering to help save our rights, but empowering personally. You're taking back your life in that way too, with your own voice. And it is. I totally agree with you. In fact, that's how 5 years ago, when I first got my CHL, Oregon was facing, I didn't know this, so I probably wouldn't have done it, but in the legislature, we were fighting to keep our records private. There was some stuff going on here locally, and papers were trying to publish the names of CHL holders. And so it ended up in the legislature that we were trying to pass CHL privacy. And I was terrified. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a crime victim. I do not want my name published like they did in Roanoke, Virginia. And I mean, I was just like, how can you not see how dangerous this is for crime victims? And I was absolutely terrified, and but I went and testified. At that time, I was so scared I wouldn't even use my name, and I was shaking, and my voice was shaking, and it took 3 sessions for us to finally pass concealed handgun license privacy of records. And I think that it's my testimony, and I don't think there were any other crime victims at that time that came forward, but it completely changed the focus from, we've got to, witch hunt all these bad gun owners and publish their information so people can know how safe they are. There was some organization called Ceasefire Oregon, and they get up there and just demonize gun owners, and people are like, yeah, we need to know where the guns are, And here's this, little old lone voice, scared and shaky, my voice going, what about crime victims? What about me? You're exposing me. And they're the bad guys now, and just in the nick of time, I got bolder and stronger, and I healed inside that part of me that, within 3 or 4 years, I think it was 3 sessions, but 4 years, we passed CHL privacy just in the nick of time, because the Oregonian and the New York Times, working in conjunction with the Oregonian, was trying to go through the Oregon State Police to get the entire CHL database for Oregon. And they were like, oh, no, we're not going to publish it. Oh, give me a break. That's what they did. And they were even trying to, so anyway, I changed that. I believe. I really do. Because I changed the argument. Gun owners then became sympathetic people who wanted to use their guns for self-defense, because we are. That's who we are. And, the New York Journal News, they did publish that interactive map of gun owners, registered gun owners. They weren't CHL holders. And there was a national outcry, and they had to take it down. And I don't think we'll ever have problems with that again. But there was even some murmurings in Oregon to overturn the decision that they made to keep our records private. The newspapers were still going after us. That was my experience with my own testimony. And since I've testified for other gun bills to keep our rights, to keep my right to protect myself, and I would go even further than to say that, well, I would say that without our voices, we may lose our rights. So.
I agree with that. I'd asked you about Taylor Woolrich. Taylor Woolrich is a student at Dartmouth in Hanover, New Hampshire, and she has for years had an active stalker who is on the gun ownership prohibition list, of course, because you do know about her? And
yes, I'm bad with names.
And
she's that pretty little blonde girl, yes.
She's gone to the college powers that be and asked them for an exception so she can carry a gun, and they've told her no. Her family has had to move, and when she's not in class, she has to stay confined to her dorm room, or she can call and ask for a campus police escort.
I read that, and they get irritated because she calls too much.
Yes, and
that makes me so mad.
I'm just waiting to see how this plays out. If I was Miss Woolrich's dad, I might seriously consider living close to her and just breaking the law, or New Hampshire's a pretty pro-gun state. Dartmouth, not so much.
It's the university system.
Yeah, it's the university. I might be walking my daughter to class, and whenever she,
Yeah.
maintaining a respectable distance or something. When I see stuff like that, and I see schools looking at students like Taylor Woolrich, who's not, she's not a big lady or anything else. She's a little girl. And telling her no guns, no reason, no way, not even for self-defense. That just, it just... And colleges are where a lot of sexual assaults occur that we never hear about, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My husband does stuff with statistics. He's really good with finding statistics. I don't even know how he does it, but it's really bad. Colleges are really bad with sexual assaults. I'm not so good with statistics, so I can't rattle it off for you. The thing that is a mystery to me about colleges is that most of these kids are 18 and up into their early 20s. When I was in the military, we'd take an 18-year-old and we could turn that kid into Rambo in about 6 months. Good point. And here we have young people that are higher, they're getting a higher education. They're learning a thought process that sometimes can only be taught in college, and we don't trust them to do the right thing. Like if they allow guns, it's going to go to gunplay during a debate about quantum physics. I don't agree with your theory. Right. Feel your hand. So. Well, one of the articles I read about Taylor, the first article, they said there's 9 states. Bad with statistics, so I could be getting some of this wrong, but there are 9 states that do allow concealed carry. Oregon is one of them, actually.
Yes.
And because they keep trying to pass this in Oregon too, and they've had 0 incidences in all of these 9 states in all of the years. Oregon, I think, has had. Most people don't know about it, even students. I think it's been 25 years, and no incidences. And because I was in testimony, they were going to try to pass no concealed carry on campus here in Oregon, and they were saying, you mix alcohol with firearms and and illegal drug use, and I'm thinking they're not supposed to be drinking or using drugs already anyway, so they're breaking those laws. That was one thing I thought. So creating this other law, but the other thing I thought is, there's no evidence to say that. That's just, again, it's academic. It's them in their think bubble thinking these things up that are not true. And that scares me. It makes me mad and it scares me, which is why I take action. It's just no incidences. It's not true. What is true is that women are being sexually assaulted on campuses and they need the ability to defend themselves. That's true.
Rachel, thank you very much for joining me today. This has been fun. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
All right. Stay safe. Keep fighting. This is Lock and Load.
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
It's not about keeping guns out of the hands of law-abiding Americans, and I'm sick and tired of people lying to the American people.
We can't have a totally armed society.
We're not proposing a gun registration system. We're proposing background checks for criminals.
In the spirit of gun control, will you disarm your entire security team?
We'll get right back to you.
You'll get back to me?
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? And that's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns.
The Bill of Rights protects every American's God-given right to keep and bear arms. Now that right is being seriously undermined as legally registered rifles are being confiscated in some parts of our country. If we're not careful, we may find ourselves with no right to own guns, and that's where Gun Owners of America comes in. Gun Owners of America is in Washington every day fighting for you to keep that right. Congressman Ron Paul has called GOA the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. You need to be part of this great grassroots group of activists who are keeping the heat on their members of Congress. Find out right now how you can join. Call 888-886-GUNS and get started receiving their fact-filled newsletters and action alerts. Call 888-886-GUNS or go to their webpage at gunowners.org and help make your voice heard in Washington. Make that call right now and call Gun Owners of America at 888-886-GUNS. Remember, it's not just about gun control, it's about control.